Suppose the embarrassing position is that she worked at a magazine that was owned by the girlfriend of the guy who owned Penthouse, and they shared like copy editing. But I feel like the embarrassing position is that she is a loser and she continues to rise the ranks even though she's a bitch. Like, to me, that's embarrassing. That everyone hates you and that everyone's like, oh gosh, here's the girl with the rotten personality. Oh, good, my goodness gracious, not Anna. Please, Lord, no. I mean, like, those are some things to be embarrassed about. Working at a magazine that happens to be next door to a trashy magazine is not like the greatest embarrassment in the world or anything like that. But your ratty personality is a real issue. Hello, how are you? Welcome to my channel. My name is Cheer Denise. We're going to keep going in Front Row, the biography of Anna Wintour by Jerry Oppenheimer. Today is a long chapter, so usually I'll try to give a little bit of an intro, but if you've gotten this far, you know what's happening. You don't need me to waste your time. So this chapter is entitled An Embarrassing Position, and I do just want to remind you she's in New York now. The last time we read, she was really having kind of an ugly breakup with her very best childhood friend who also lived in New York at the time. Her friend had just gotten married, and it feels like her decision to break up the friendship was really based on jealousy. But Anna's life right now is work, but also like her love life is a huge priority for her. So she's working, but also she's constantly got her assistants and the people around her and her coworkers covering for her because as she's running around with multiple different men, she's got to keep her story straight and they're kind of helping her out. And that's going to feature as well in this chapter. But one of the things we're going to read about specifically in this chapter is how difficult she was to work with and how, as she's rising through the ranks, she's unable to keep staff because she either fires them because she doesn't like them or they leave because they think it's untenable. It's a whole thing with Anna and keeping staff. So let's proceed. Chapter 16 is, like I said, entitled An Embarrassing Position. And the chapter begins by saying that Anna's firing from Harper's Bazaar had come so swiftly and so unexpectedly that she was in a state of shock. Out of work for several months with nothing lined up, she was getting desperate. Money wasn't the issue, but getting back on her career track was. Her primary concern was her climb to the summit to get to the Holy Grail, Vogue. That's when she turned to John Bradshaw, who would always be there for her no matter how troubled the state of their relationship. As Bradshaw's writer friend Nick Cohen notes, he was very protective of Anna. There was a very fatherly way about him toward her. Bradshaw had media connections all over Manhattan, and one of them was Beverly Wardale, an advertising executive at Bob Guccione's Penthouse magazine. Wardale, a Brit, was married to Bradshaw and Nigel Dempster's chum Brian Vine, the New York bureau chief of London's Daily Express. Bradshaw and Anna had met Wardale and Vine for drinks at the King Cole Bar at the St. Regis Hotel. And Bradshaw mentioned that Anna was looking for a job in fashion. Wardale said she'd see what she could do, thinking there might be an opening at Penthouse's sister publication, Viva. Acting on a tip, Bradshaw put in a call to another acquaintance, Peter Bloch, an articles editor at Penthouse, then Playboy's major competitor in mainstream girly magazine field. He said he had a girlfriend who was looking for a fashion gig in New York, and that she had lots of experience in London, and was there any chance Viva would be interested in talking with her? There was no mention of a recent firing. Both Wardale and Bloch mentioned Anna's availability. As luck would have it, Alma Moore, the editor of Viva, was looking for a new fashion editor. The last fashionista had just been axed in another Friday night massacre, the place with a revolving door, by Guccione's significant other, Kathy Keaton. A 30-something ballerina turned exotic dancer who had polio as a child, Keaton had conceived and launched Viva with Guccione's money in October 1973, with pieces by Joyce Carol Oates, Norman Mailer, and Tom Wicker. She ran the monthly with a halter top, tight pants, F-me heels, and an iron hand in a velvet glove, from an enormous office filled with white wicker furniture and a desk guarded by two ferocious-looking Rhodesian Ridgebacks. But Keaton, a South African whom Guccione had met in London, only dressed like a bimbo. She was bright and ambitious and was now hoping to have Viva, which was her baby, compete for readers against such high-end magazines as Vogue, Cosmopolitan, and Glamour. Viva attracted strong, literate, creative women's lib editors, such as Patricia Bosworth, who, like Anna, had worked for Harper's Bazaar, and later went on to write well-received biographies. There was Dawn Steele, who had worked as a secretary, and in promotions developing X-rated products for Penthouse, who became a powerhouse in Hollywood as head of Columbia Pictures. Andre Leon Talley, the flamboyant black fashionista, who would become Anna's creative sidekick years later, did some time there. Keaton recruited top-notch editors for magazines like Esquire and Gloria Steinemann's Ms. Ironically, all of this high-toned editorial activity was happening just across the divider from where Penthouse's shaved and pink gynecological-like shots were being laid out, and where the world-famous raunchy Dear Penthouse letters were penned. Based on Wardale and Blotch's suggestion, Alma Moore interviewed Anna and was impressed. I explained what I wanted to do, and she knew what she wanted to do, and we were in agreement. One knew she had ambitions. In late 1976, 27-year-old Anna was brought on as the editor in charge of Viva's fashion department, which consisted at that moment of Anna. It was the most powerful position she had held up to that point. The month she started, the magazine featured an article called How to Throw Fabulous Parties, Create New Faces, Wear Silk Stockings, Have Sexy Fantasies, and Perfect Orgasms. Word of her hiring was instantly communicated to London, probably by Bradshaw or one of her British compatriots in New York, where Private Eye duly reported that the pulchritudinous daughter of Sir Charles is working on a porn magazine. The Wintours, about to get a permanent separation and soon a divorce, did have one thing in common: mortification about where their daughter was working. The cloud that had always hung over Viva, mainly because of its X-rated sister publication, was indeed an embarrassment to Anna. The reminders were always there. To get to her office, she had to walk down a hall lined with photos of shapely female legs and other body parts in past offices where former Penthouse pets worked and were on display. Young, shapely babes with big hair, lots of makeup, and enormous boobs, as one former Viva staffer recalls. While there was no mixing of staff, Viva and Penthouse did share the art department and copy editing. Over the years, Anna has ignored, downplayed, and even blatantly fibbed about the time she spent at Viva, and was known to take circuitous routes later to avoid people who worked with her there, apparently not wanting to be reminded. In March 1998, in a profile in the London Daily Telegraph, for instance, she tweaked the truth to suit her Vogue's image. She was quoted as saying, "Once I got over being fired at Harper's Bazaar, I did a little freelance again before getting a job on New York Magazine." The truth of the matter is that Anna spent 2 aggressive years on the staff of Viva and had 3 years of other personal and professional adventures before New York agreed to hire her. It was, in fact, quite a chunk of resume time that she had brushed off as a little freelance. Moore felt that Anna's aloofness in the office, which surfaced on her first day on the job, and the fact that at Viva she always hid behind what became her trademark sunglasses, had to do with her discomfiture. There was embarrassment on her part, and maybe her family said, "Are you sure you want to be working at a place like that?" Still in touch with Anna, Vivian Lasky was horrified. "She told me she was working for that awful Bob Guccione, and I said I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him. But she said, well, one needs a job, work is work." Anna said she had complete editorial control, that she was being given carte blanche. I said, "Good for you, but is it 2 pages of fashion or 5? And I remember her giving me this look like, "You're giving me the 3rd degree like your father used to give me." I know she felt awkward there. As it turned out, Anna had an incredibly good situation for someone who had just been pink-slipped from one of the world's leading fashion magazines. Her department was hidden away in a corner of the Viva office where she was left on her own, reporting only to Moore and Keaton, with whom she pitched story ideas. I gave her pretty much control, and that's unusual, acknowledges Moore. She was very sure of herself, decisive, a young woman to be reckoned with. We both saw fashion and beauty the same way and agreed that what Viva did had to be distinctive, had to stand out from the other magazines, and she managed to do that. She realized she could call the shots and could go far. Unlike the plain Jane feminist story and copy editors at Viva who wore jeans or conservative business suits, or the Penthouse secretaries in stilettos, tight skirts, and lots of cleavage a la Kathy Keaton, Anna showed up for work in dramatic style. For a time, her outfit of choice was jodhpurs, worn with riding boots, missing only the crop. "She looks smashing," recalls Moore. "I used to tease her, 'Anna, when you become fashion editor at Vogue, you'll end up wearing Chanel suits.' And she scoffed and said, 'I will always dress the way I want to dress.'" Anna also sported another glamorous look, a chic and expensive outfit consisting of tight white t-shirts over Yves Saint Laurent peasant skirts and leather boots, all of which made her look like a skinny Cossack. In spring and summer, she sported Alice in Wonderland straw hats over her bob, and in winter she kept it warm with a fur hat with the furry tails of little animals hanging from it. A gift from Bradshaw. One colleague remembers thinking, "That is the mother of all hats, and if you aren't Anna Wintour, don't try this at home." Not long after Anna came aboard, she hired a young woman in her early 20s as an assistant, the first in a long line over the years. As her first foray into fashion and magazine world, she initially viewed Anna as very creative. Hoping to learn from her, the assistant watched her boss closely, but soon was shocked to discover that most of her work was looking for ideas in foreign fashion magazines. She says that one of her most important roles was making excuses to Anna's many suitors when she was off with someone else. She was having affairs left and right. She was dating married men, and she had no qualms, the woman maintains. She didn't enlist me to cover for her, which put me in a very awkward position. If the person she was involved with called up and I knew where Anna was, I couldn't let on. I just have to keep it vague. Anna knew I knew who she was involved with, but we wouldn't talk about it. She was involved with 2 or 3 persons at the same time sometimes, and not all were photographers. Some were very prominent men. Anna often borrowed clothes from designers or retailers. That's how the job of fashion editor gets done. Anna got credit for the spread, and the fashion trade people got their names in print. It was one happy, productive, and close relationship for all. However, the assistant soon came to realize that Anna was wearing some of the clothes she borrowed. She would take clothes home and wear them, and bring them back to the office and have me return them for her, she claims. The relationship between Anna and the assistant deteriorated, and she was gone in less than a year. Looking back on the experience, she says, "Anna has to have it her way. She's extremely manipulative of assistants and everyone. Anna Wintour is definitely a trip." Another assistant was described as a sharp cookie, but apparently didn't get along. She lasted just a few months before being given the hatchet. Anna's next assistant was a whole different story, and they would become involved in a long-running love-hate relationship. Paul Sinclair, a fashionista friend of Anna's, walked into Yves Saint Laurent in Manhattan one afternoon to browse. He and Anna often shopped there together, and spotted an interesting-looking young woman. With her wild hair and red lips, she reminded him not of a saleswoman, but rather Louise Brooks' Lulu character, glamorous and eccentric and right out of fiction. I thought, wow. As it turned out, Sinclair and the young woman, a Brit named Georgia Gunn, had a mutual friend. They became pals, and Sinclair introduced her to Anna, who absolutely adored Georgia. But when Sinclair, who was affiliated with the chic Manhattan boutique Diane B., tried to hire Gunn, Anna freaked out. She stepped in and hired her as her own girl Friday, and, as many saw it, her whipping girl. Most of the stories of the years about Anna's shoddy treatment of assistants started at Viva with talk about her behavior toward Georgia Gunn. Anna didn't get along with her, Alma Moore recalls. They traveled together on everything, and Anna treated her badly. She blamed her for a fiasco of a sitting, which cost a lot of money because it was shot on some exotic island, and poor Georgia took all the heat. Colleagues remember Anna acting like a wild-eyed diva, verbally flagellating Gunn if anything, even the most minor detail, didn't go according to Anna's perfectionistic plan. As cool and aloof and in control as Anna was, recalls Viva and Penthouse female staff photographer Pat Hill, Georgia seemed to be kind of a bumbler. But she wasn't. It was a strange balance between them and very interesting to watch. Stephanie Brush, a 22-year-old Northwestern University drama school dropout, but a talented writer who joined the staff around the same time as Anna, saw Anna as glacial and Georgia as down-to-earth. If you were to cast them in a film, Anna would play Princess Diana because Di and Anna both managed to cultivate a mystique, and Georgia would have been the Fergie character. Georgia got the brunt of whatever pressure there was to do the fashion job right, maintains Brush. Anna would have the ideas and think, oh, it would be great if we did such and such. But Georgia was the one who did all the work and took all of Anna's BS that she was just spewing out that particular week. I know Georgia got frustrated, and Anna was a fairly frustrating person to work with because she had pretty strong ideas about things and was not known for her tact. It would not occur to Anna to sort of soften the blow. She didn't have the time or the energy or the inclination. She had the attitude without the power. But eventually, she got both. See, that's what would really piss me off, is like, okay, if you're really somebody that I have to take it from, okay. But you don't own this magazine. You don't own Manhattan. You don't own America. You don't own the world. Like, who do you think that you are? That you can just berate me like this over every minor detail. And you come up with these wild, harebrained ideas about what you think would be good. But, I mean, is it even feasible? And as I struggle to get this done and you're over here just beating me with your verbal whip, I mean, what's the point here? You came up with an idea that can't be executed, and I look like the bumbler because I can't get it done. But I think the other thing that's very, very aggravating, and this is the second time, and I'm sure the second of countless times, is how many people are like, I witnessed chaos at the hands of Anna berating someone and treating someone like trash. It's crazy how Anna did that. But everyone's like, letting her treat people like this. Like, at no time do any of the bosses even say, I had to take Anna aside because it was getting out of control. It's just like, well, she just had a big personality. Okay, so she's an abuser, and everyone's like, well, she was just an abuser. That was her personality. Well, abusers are like that because they've gone away with it this long. I mean, like, at what point were any of these people going to be like, hey, Anna, why don't you ease up on Georgia a bit? Where are the stories like that? I'll tell you, if this book has taught me anything so far, we're only 122 pages in, it's that I don't ever want to have to look back at a scenario and be like, yeah, head scratcher there. That girl was real mean. And sit there and act like it was all out of my hands. How could it have been out of my hands? I was sitting right there watching the whole thing. At what point were any of these people going to stand up to Anna and be like, why don't you pump the brakes, you crazy nut? Why don't you just calm down? It's just, that's not how you talk to somebody. Georgia, are you okay? Like, where's that story? And do you want to be one of these people that, like, 30 years down the road, someone's asking you, like, tell me your life story, and you got to tell stories in which you were watching somebody be abused and you never said anything about it? I mean, I wonder if any of these people feel bad about this. Coworkers wince years later when they thought of Anna and Gunn's stormy relationship, described as one of master and slave. Beverly Wardale, who thought Gunn was terrific, recalls Anna having her ironing clothes and sending her to the other side of Manhattan to pick up a pair of gloves because she decided, at the last minute, that the ones Gunn had originally chosen just weren't quite right. And Anna wanted the new ones ASAP. There were explosions with Anna, who had terrible temper tantrums, and you could hear her screaming at Georgia, asserts Susan Duff, who had come on staff as beauty editor shortly after Anna and worked very closely with her. It was very unpleasant for Georgia, and for everyone. We were all sort of creeping around and walking on eggshells trying to stay out of Anna's way, because she can get really mean, and she didn't care about people's feelings. She's one of those perfectionists who couldn't tolerate mere mortals. There was something about the way Anna worked, her single-mindedness, continues Duff. You couldn't imagine she had life outside of being a fashion editor. One never had any intimation she had a friend or a family. It appeared to me she never thought of anything except fashion, and doing those shoots, and getting those photographers together, with these designers, and dreaming out layouts. It was almost her whole being. The rest of us were sort of having a good time. We traveled a lot, we were well paid, we had long martini lunches, but she was a workaholic on a mission, which was kind of a mystery until you got to see that what she was about was discovering designers and putting together the most fabulous photographers available. No one was doing stuff like that back then. But in doing it, she intimidated everyone. And it wasn't just Georgia, but anyone who got in her way. You could hear her screaming on the phone to whomever, someone not doing what she wanted them to do. Anna was so intense. She couldn't tolerate any mistakes or incompetence. To hear her, all of this was life and death stuff, which is probably common among people who do just one thing, and it's all they ever really think about, and it's got to be done their way. Anna quickly gained a reputation at Viva as the editor from hell, a reputation that would stick and come to haunt her as she moved up in the fashion magazine business. Years later, people who had worked with her compared her to another imperious diva, the convicted felon and queen of domesticity, Martha Stewart. As a shameless plug for my last book, if you've not listened to the Martha Stewart book, that would be a thing to listen to at this time. All right, there were times, though, when Anna was happy with Gunn's work. She was given the title of accessories editor, and on rare instances, Anna would join Gunn and Duff for drinks. Rare because Anna had made few, if any, friends at the magazine and didn't appear to care. On one of those nice Anna moments, when she was in a good mood and getting along, Duff asked her for some fashion tips. What to wear, how to make what she had in her closet look great. Anna glared hard at her for a long moment, looking her up and down, and then flippantly replied, "You'd have to throw out everything you own." Anna wasn't being cute with her criticism. She was being harshly honest, which was her style. You couldn't enter her realm, observes Duff. She was alone in that. And that didn't bother her either, as far as I could tell. She felt superior to everyone in kind of a class way. That's what's really interesting to me, is because Anna, I think, having come from a class system of sorts, in which she had been part of the upper echelon, she said later in interviews, I was so excited to leave London and to leave where your name and your accent really are so determining of your existence. Which I thought was an odd statement to make, since her name and her accent and her position and place in life is what had gotten her anything she had at that moment. But she acted as though that was like a negative thing. I'm so glad to leave that behind. But then she comes to America and very much feels superior to the Americans. Very much brings her upper crust British existence to the American shore and acts as though, I'm so above it. You poor, filthy little peasants over here in the colonies. Anyway, she thinks she's better than everyone, and she rules with an iron rod, and everyone's just willing to lay down for their next beating. It doesn't make any sense. Well, virtually everyone at the magazine respected Anna's fashion sense and her eye for what was new and hot. It was widely known and joked about that she couldn't put any of her styling talent into words on paper, a criticism she had faced back in her Harper's and Queen days. Anna was known for not having any particular verbal or writing skills, notes Stephanie Brush, one of a few on staff whom Anna took a liking to. She wasn't articulate like Tina Brown. Anna wasn't someone who could sit and talk about complicated ideas. She would just say, "Oh, that's fabulous." She didn't seem to have a lot of complicated ideas in her head. Maybe that's why she liked me, because I was a writer, and she liked people who were good with words. And I was known on the grapevine as this up-and-coming writer, so that didn't escape her notice. After Anna settled in, Duff was assigned to write all of her fashion copy. She never had anything to do with any kind of description of what she was doing, says Duff. I'd get these layouts from her with these absolutely wild Helmut Newton photographs, and I'd just write fiction. I would write a little short story. Sometimes I'd create this story after I went to the shoots and interviewed the models and the photographer. And even at the shoots, I'd have very little interaction with her. Anna had no input on the copy and wasn't interested in having any. I always thought of her as an exalted stylist because she never had anything to do with any of the written description. See, that's wild to me. How can you become the fashion editor, but you can't talk about fashion? And I think what's also really shocking, too, is, it's well known, okay? The American education system is pretty poor and has been in comparison to the British system. So it truly shines a light on how very little she was doing at school. Because I think with even half of a British education, she'd be smarter than probably most of the people she ran into. But the fact that she can't write, it's a really shocking testament to how she'd really fallen down on the job at school. Anna's failure to communicate in words, what she had her stable of high-priced and big-name photographers communicating pictures, infuriated Rowan Johnson, Viva's very talented and off-the-wall South African art director. To punish her, he often put the gorgeous layouts that she had obsessively conceived and developed into the magazine without giving her credit in the form of a byline. Instead, the story would say, photographs by Helmut Newton, text by Susan Duff, even though the text was usually modest compared to Anna's electric spreads. All of which infuriated Anna, and was embarrassing to Duff because she knew how hard Anna had worked. Though their work relationship was stormy at times, Anna and Johnson adored each other, although Anna was rather eclipsed by Rowan, says then Penthouse art director Joe Brooks, one of Johnson's close friends. In fact, there was considerable gossip that Johnson hoped for more with Anna. There was talk, acknowledges Penthouse editor Peter Bloch, but in those days, there was talk about everyone at the two magazines. Beverly Wardale got a call one night from Johnson, who was on a shoot with Anna in Montauk in the Hamptons. I'll never forget that call. He asked me, "Do you think I should jump Anna tonight?" He would try anything if he got scotch in him. He'd have quite fancied being involved with Anna. He was Peck's bad boy, extremely creative and terribly attractive. Like Bradshaw, Claude Beer, and some of the other rogues Anna had known, Rowan Johnson fit the profile, an intriguing bad boy, the son of a judge and the brother of a Rhodes Scholar. When the film Arthur, starring Dudley Moore as a ne'er-do-well lush, was released, everyone who knew Johnson said he was Arthur Bach. Everything in that movie Rowan had done, from the drinking to the Rolls-Royce to the hookers, says Brooks. We all phoned each other and said, "Good night. They've made a movie about him." The other thing about Johnson was that he was a user of hard drugs. When the door to Johnson's office was shut, everyone figured he was shooting up. He basically took every drug in the world, says Brooks. The drugs and the drinking made him difficult to take. One night at Brooks' apartment, Johnson crawled out onto the ledge 15 stories above 55th Street. As much as you loved him, he became tremendously hard to tolerate, so I shut the window on him, sort of left him out there, high above the street, screeching. And I said, "Make up your mind, in or out." Eventually, I let him back in. Johnson's drug habit became so severe at one point that Guccione and Keaton sent him to an expensive rehab clinic and picked up the tab. Johnson's favorite watering hole was P.J. Clark's, the penthouse Viva hangout across from the office on 3rd Avenue at 55th Street. He was sometimes spotted with Anna cozying at his side, though she was probably there more for political reasons, because Clark's wasn't her kind of a place. She'd be there wearing her dark glasses with Rowan, who considered himself the Mozart of art directors, recalls Peter Bloch. I can see him and Anna sitting over in Clark's endlessly, as we all did in those days. I was awestruck by Anna's being in Clark's with her dark glasses on, because the place was dark as a cave. I don't know how she managed to find her table with those glasses on. Who goes into a dark place with sunglasses on? Like, it's just so bogus and dumb. It's not like it used to be cool and then it like became uncool. It's like always uncool. Like, nobody at any time thought, wow, Anna Wintour and her glasses, what a smashing success, what a fashion novelty. You know, no one was like, oh, I can't wait to get a hold of my sunglasses and walk into a dark restaurant with them on. I mean, it's lame then, it's lame now. It's just hard for me to believe that someone with the same haircut as a 15-year-old and who also wore sunglasses into a dark restaurant consistently rose to such heights. This person with no education, no writing abilities, and who didn't have the sense to take off dark glasses in a dark room. Like, how? How did she rise? How did her star rise like this? I mean, she's doing work. That's the thing. Like, it's not like she's completely riding her father's coattail, but did she really climb the ranks because she just screamed louder than anybody else? Like, I need to know that wasn't her story. That can't be how the world works, where you just, if you scream loud enough and you're mean enough to people, you get what you want. Like, somebody tell me that's not the way the world works. Unfortunately, it would appear that it is. Okay, Johnson and Duff weren't the only staffers who had difficulty getting information out of Anna for scheduled stories. Photographers such as Pat Hill, a female and the only shooter and photo editor on staff, faced a similar dilemma. Hill straddled the very different worlds of Viva and Penthouse, snapping Penthouse pet pictorials for Guccione and artsy portraiture for Keaton. When Anna came aboard, Hill kept a close eye on her work, which was always shot by her stable of mostly male freelance photographers, and was duly impressed. She produced some wonderful pages, she says, but when they passed in the hall, Anna looked down her sunglasses at her. It was like I was not important enough to talk to because I was a staff photographer, notes Hill. I'm a pretty friendly person. I'd say hi to everyone, but I don't go out of my way to get smacked down. She was just very icy from the start, and I really kind of kept away from her because I got such negative vibes. On one occasion, though, Hill was assigned by Johnson to work with Anna. He probably foresaw what would happen if the two collaborated, and wanted a vicarious high when their claws were bared. He was on the mark. The assignment quickly deteriorated into a catfight. The only information Hill was given by Johnson was that the feature involved a dancer from the American Ballet Theater. I never had a clue what was really going on, she says years later. An intense and creative photographer who took all of her assignments seriously, Hill immediately put in a call to Anna to find out what she needed. And Hill called and called and called. I must have called her at least 3 or 4 times a day for 3 weeks, or whatever the lead time was. She was always unavailable. I'd call her, and if I caught her, which was rare, she'd say, "I'll call you back," and then never did. I'd call Georgia, and she'd say, she'll get back to you. She hasn't gone over that yet. But she never did call back. The day before the shoot, I called Anna's office and said, "I'm shooting, starting at 8 o'clock. One of the reasons Hill had a hard time reaching Anna was that Anna made her own hours, unlike the other editors. Anna didn't tie herself to the desk and was often off doing other things. No one knew what, so she was hard to pin down. Anna pretty much showed up when she felt like it, recalls Stephanie Brush, who had been promoted from editorial assistant to an assistant editor spot after one of Kathy Keaton's many editorial shakeups. There wasn't any 9 to 5 for her. It was just understood she showed up when she wanted to show up. I never got the sense of her working for anybody. She sort of had her own little fiefdom. Anna popped up, made phone calls, and left. I don't think she ever really moved into her office. It was kind of a place where she kept a phone, tacked up some photos she liked, had some clothes she liked sort of lying around, which are what fashion editor offices look like. But she didn't turn her office into a little home away from home because she didn't really have a homey kind of personality. Ever so often, Anna would breeze in and out of an editorial meeting when the peons were deciding what to put in the magazine. Stopping for a moment during one such brainstorming session, Anna volunteered her magic formula. A magazine, she proclaimed, should be like a perfect dinner party. The 2 essentials are a politician and a pretty girl. As she scooted out, jaws dropped, and if by chance she sat in on a meeting, she usually remained mute. She kept her opinions to herself, and not to say anything at all, or contribute vaguely, seemed almost insolent, recalls an editor. Not to be stymied by Anna's failure to return her calls, Pat Hill went ahead and prepared for the shoot with the vague information she was given. She rented Merce Cunningham's downtown dance studio for the day, determined her lighting needs, and stayed up late for several nights dyeing bolts of fabric in various shades of plum and pinks and reds, which she thought might be used as backdrops to match ballet skirts after doing research on Degas' painting of ballet dancers. On the day of the shoot, I got there at the crack of dawn and set up, and everything all fell in line, and then in trails Anna, with her hair and makeup people, looks around at the setup and says, "Just what do you think you're doing? Don't you know this is just a service feature? It's just dance positions 1, 2, and 3. Hill couldn't believe what she was hearing. I said, "Well, I couldn't get a hold of you, and I've taken all this trouble, and I'm just going to have to shoot it like this with the background." And she just gave me that Anna look. She was not nice about it. She was a bitch. She said, "Well, shoot it the way you want, but then you're going to have to reshoot it, aren't you, because I'm telling you to." I was going to shoot it my way at that point because I never could get any answer out of her. It was a really horrible, ugly scene. As Hill learned at that moment, the shoot was tied to a new 1977 film about the ballet world called The Turning Point, starring Shirley MacLaine, Anne Bancroft, and Mikhail Baryshnikov. The dancer Hill was assigned to photograph was Leslie Brown, who played Baryshnikov's love interest. Meanwhile, at the dance studio, battle lines had been drawn. Anna stayed on one side of the studio, and I was on the other, Hill says. They would dress the dancer and put her makeup on, and then send her over to my side, and I would do what I needed to do. Anna was never next to me the entire day. Around noon, Hill, trying to restore some semblance of propriety, asked her assistant to take lunch orders, this still being the days before such assignments became Hollywood-styled catered affairs. The lunch break brought the morning's work to a halt. Everyone placed his or her order, including Anna, and then she sat around looking sullen as everyone waited for the assistant to return with the grub. An hour passed, and then 2. All the while, Hill was running out of natural light. When the assistant finally returned with brown bags, Hill was livid. I said, "You took so long. What did everyone order?" He said, "Well, Anna wanted quiche, caviar, and champagne." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. First of all, we didn't have the budget for that, and the location was in a dead zone. He had to run blocks and blocks, but couldn't find what she wanted, so he made a decision. He got her tuna fish on rye. I was like, "Good for you." I mean, you can't get away with not giving me the information I needed for the shoot and then come in and act like a queen. After the shoot, Hill went to Johnson and demanded, "What the hell's going on with her?" And he just said, "Pat, it's Anna's baby, but I'm going to give you an opening spread so that we don't waste those photos." He wasn't going to confront her, but was making amends to me for all that aggravation from Anna. But that was it between me and Anna. We never worked together again. I really kept away from her. There was just this sense of negativity, and life's too short to deal with it. Hill was convinced that Anna's lack of communication from the start was intentional, because Anna wanted Hill to look bad and not get another assignment at Viva. Anna's motivation, Hill firmly believes, was paranoia that all photography must be turned in-house and away from Anna's freelance photographers, which would diminish her power. Years later, the memory of the incident still riles Hill, who says, "It's probably the ugliest experience I've ever had in dealing with an editor, and it affected me for a long time." You guys, I am flabbergasted. Why in the world would she make it so difficult for this other photographer? What's crazy to me is any normal person would think, okay, I don't need to be a bitch to this person, even though I'm kind of scared about the fact that they are going to then have to be my choice and I like to choose my own photographers. But she knew that she could control people with her bad attitude. I mean, she knew that if she pitched a fit with this girl and it became this huge issue, rather than people being like, "Hey, we want to use in-house photographers and you need to change your attitude," people would just be like, "Oh, I don't want to deal with that again. I'll just let Anna have her way." So everyone else is going to have to choose these in-house photographers, but we'll let Anna do her thing. And it's so infuriating because any normal person would never have chosen to be a huge major bitch. But Anna, like, her first instinct is to be a bitch. And then everyone gives her way. She always gets her way by throwing a tantrum. And it's just like, how aggravating that your whole life, all you're told by your parents is like, don't throw a fit and stop acting ugly and you get what you get and you don't throw a fit and all of this. But apparently it actually works if you do throw a fit. Although we have to remember, Anna had no satisfying personal life. She's getting what she wants, I guess. But what does she have? Work? So, I mean, I guess if all you want is work and then like these really dramatic and chaotic relationships, If that was like your goal in life, I mean, Anna was living her goals. She's a workaholic and has chaotic romantic involvements that seem very unfulfilling and very dramatic. But that's what her life was, work and terrible, dramatic-filled relationships. But it's just so aggravating that all these people just bend over backwards because, oh, here comes Anna. We're so scared of Anna. Who cares? What is she, like 5'4"? Drop her and move on. Okay, anyway. Jean Pagliuso, another female fashion photographer who started shooting for Anna at Viva and became a member of her little family of photographers that worked with her over the years, saw Anna as very methodical, very determined, very demanding, and self-possessed. She brought the fear of God into everybody, and I felt it on every shoot, Pagliuso says. Nobody seemed to ever tell her what to do because she really was quite good, and her choices of designers and photographers were made intellectually. She had it all together, and it was always top of the line. She had a gift. After working with her for a time, Pagliuso perceived that Anna had a number of eccentricities, one of which was to tune out while overseeing a shoot. Anna had a very low boredom threshold, and once the shot was set up, and once Anna liked it, she was not there anymore in her head, the photographer says. It's very hard to shoot when you know somebody's doing that, when you know they've tuned out, because you're both supposed to be working towards something, but she'd be standing next to me and suddenly she wasn't there anymore. And that's not giving me creative freedom. That's like saying, I'm no longer interested. That I was boring her. Other fashion editors stay with it. Not Anna. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. I wonder if something's wrong with her. I mean, obviously. But, like, that's an unusual thing to work so hard for something. And then you're right there at the brink of it. It's being accomplished and you're like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I don't have anything more to say about it. I'm done. It's like she was always chasing a high. And the high for her was getting it accomplished, seeing that it was being done, and then like immediately losing interest. And I think somebody like that would be a super hard person to be in any kind of relationship with, friendship or otherwise, romantic, whatever. Because this is a person who is never satisfied and is always chasing the next high. But I don't know that I've ever read about somebody who so acutely loses interest so visually, and like you can feel like the energy draining out of her, and she's like, she's not there. She's done. She's moved on. How weird. After time, Pagliuso became part of Anna's social circle, but then was suddenly and inexplicably dumped for no discernible reason. It was over, she says. That was it. As others have noted, women aren't Anna's cup of tea, and she therefore preferred working with male photographers and gave them more freedom and less attitude. The ones she chose to be part of her stable were imaginative, creative, and good-looking types like the Frenchman Guy Lebaume. As a young photographer, Lebaume, at the recommendation of Helmut Newton, was the first to put a new model named Jerry Hall in the camera's lens for the L'Oreal calendar, and his pictures caught the eye of Vogue's Alex Lieberman, who hired him and gave him his start in America in 1976. At Viva, Anna began using Lebaume, but even though they had some wild and fun times on location together, he says she was not very pleasant to work with. Anna was very straightforward. She didn't go for the phony, nicey-nice fashion bullshit, and the relationship could be tough, and sometimes we wrestled. She'd say, I don't agree with you. It should be done this way, my way. This is rubbish. This is ghastly, with a very British manner. I'm French. And naturally, the British and the French have this enmity. With Americans, it's always, oh, you're so French. But with the British, it's just, F you. We don't play together. Like others who were loyal members of her crew, he eventually got dropped when she got the big job at Vogue. Anna picked people to work with who were on the top at the time. In the marketplace, he explains, she chose people who were up and in, and she didn't take much risk. She wasn't experimenting. He also notes that once he completed a shoot with her, Anna would permit him to pick the best 5 or 6 photos, and then she would decide which ones would make it into the magazine, the kind of freedom she didn't usually offer to female photographers. For Lebaume and any photographer, that was a wonderful situation because it gave him a great deal of creative control. She was quite loose about letting you be free to shoot your way, he maintains. She gave you an immense space of freedom, and she was very trusting, he notes, compared to Grace Mirabella, the editor of Vogue, or top Vogue fashion editors like Jade Hobson and Polly Mellon, with whom he often worked. I would end up having the shittiest photographs of the series being picked and published by them, and would have no say about it. With Anna, she gave you the say. The result was what counted with her. He felt that her style of giving the photographer freedom was more old Europe than the American fashion editors with whom he worked, who demanded more control. Later, all that would change with Anna. But for now, she thought it in her best interest to allow the pros to judge which photographs were the best. Their trained eye and experience would make her look good in the end, and she could take much of the credit. Despite their little battles, Les Baum did find Anna desirable. She's very attractive and extremely discreet. He maintains that nothing ever happened between them, though I do believe it would have been possible if it was pushed. I think she needed to be attractive to a man. She was more attracted to me than I was to her. There was a lot of frustration. I felt it was no good to have a sexual relationship or a sentimental one, or both, with someone like Anna, who I wrestled with professionally. We had some dinners and lunches, but she was not very compassionate and extremely selfish. To have lunch or dinner with Anna, you don't do ha-ha. I don't know what that means. You don't do ha-ha? I don't know what that means. Because Guccione and Keaton were willing to spend money, Anna was able to travel the world on location shoots, from islands in the Caribbean to Japan. She hired cutting-edge photographers like Helmut Newton, Deborah Tuberville, Patrick Demarchelier, Andre Carrera, and Shig Ikeda. At Viva, savvy staffers glimpsed Anna as a demanding and creative editor, a take-no-prisoners executive, and a fashionista with a capital F, gifts that would eventually catapult her to the top of the fashion magazine world and make her a legend in her own time. Along with being possessed of a rare and unerring creative eye, she was a singular wizard at delegating work to highly creative people, which many consider one of her highest attributes. Like her father, she hired the best and the brightest, demanded absolute loyalty, and gave them a free hand. To a point. A lot of Anna's success at Viva was because of Rowan Johnson, who had a wonderful sense of design and was very creative, observes Stephanie Brush, who after leaving Viva went on to write a best-selling humor book and had a syndicated newspaper column. Someone once said that Anna doesn't really know what she likes, but if it's the right designer, she'll like it. If she hears the name of the designer, she'll say, "Oh, that's good." It was fashion if Anna said it was fashion. She had that kind of definitiveness about her. She was this strange and exotic and distant creature who looked cutting edge, was out there, with a mysterious way about her, this aura. And she obviously knew it. So I suppose the embarrassing position is that she worked at a magazine that was owned by the girlfriend of the guy who owned Penthouse, and they shared, like, copy editing. But I feel like the embarrassing position is that she is a loser and she continues to rise the ranks even though she's a bitch. Like, to me, that's embarrassing. That everyone hates you and that everyone's like, oh gosh, here's the girl with the rotten personality. Oh, good, my goodness gracious, not Anna. Please, Lord, no. I mean, like, those are some things to be embarrassed about. Working at a magazine that happens to be next door to a trashy magazine is not like the greatest embarrassment in the world or anything like that. But your ratty personality is a real issue. This girl's a real piece of work. But I am enjoying all the stories about her incredible lameness, although I am simultaneously being incredibly discouraged by the world we live in, because it just feels like, do the good guys win? I know they do. I believe it with all my heart. There's much more good than evil in this world. But sometimes you just read stories like this and they're like, where is your comeuppance? Is it in the dark spaces of the night when you're lying in bed being like, I have no friends, no family, and nobody really cares about me? Is that where you get it? Is that where you get your comeuppance? Is your comeuppance not for public consumption? I'm afraid that that is the case here, but I really need your comeuppance to be, for public consumption because I want to consume it. I want to consume the fact that you acting like a bitch did not actually have its rewards. I need to know that. I know she lost Vogue, but I mean, I don't feel like I'm getting enough information about that that's real tantalizing. And, she got to be what she wanted to be. So it annoys me. Anyway. All right, I'll see you guys later this week, obviously, for more Anna Wintour. And then, of course, Friday News Roundup. Relish this book, y'all, because as I've said. It's really interesting to me how many people in the comments are like, oh my gosh, no, you're not, what? This is the worst news. How could you do this? How could you give this up? But what I want to say is, where are all of y'all in my life when I post a book? Is it like, are we just sad to see like an era end? And so we're like, oh no, don't let the era end. But I wasn't invested in the era, but I don't want to see it be over. I do just want to reiterate, I'm not done with books. I'm just going to do like shorter reviews or drop a lengthy review, but like all at once. So like, don't give up hope. You know, the sun also rises. We just have to do it differently than we've been doing. You know what I'm saying? All right. I'll see you guys soon. Have a great rest of your day.